them to introduce themselves to us. Again, as I said before, my name is Cynthia Simpson Obioha, and I am located in South Carolina. And I will ask my team members to introduce themselves. Katrina?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Katrina Cole Garner, and I'm a school counselor at the Gwinnett School of Math, Science, and Technology in Georgia.
Hey, good morning, everyone. My name is Noah Pittman. I work at the Honors College at the University of Arkansas.
Thank you very much. And we also have Marceline Lindsay. She is in St. Pius X Catholic High School in Georgia as well. She will be joining us momentarily. All of us that know about school buildings know that things do come up, and such is the case this morning, but she's going to join us as soon as she is able. Thank you, Katrina and Noah. So what exactly is the Extending the Dream Professional Grant? This particular offering from the SACAC organization has been established to enable members of SACAC to establish and pay for special projects within their communities. Those Extend the Dream grant projects that are presented to SACAC and this committee should be focused on serving college-bound students. And we want you to know that we have found over time that many of the persons in the different communities that apply for these grants really do serve as advocates for their communities and the students that they serve to help to cultivate and foster a true sense of access and desire to attend college. We typically want this grant to be seen as an opportunity for you as an advocate for the students that you serve to increase or enhance the college-going access for the students that you serve. So we appreciate, again, that you're here this morning. Grants typically are awarded somewhere near the amount of $500 or so and then move upward. And we want you to know that as a candidate, and we hope that all of you all will apply, please know that you will hear from our committee regarding the status of your application. You will be notified if you are going to move or being given the opportunity to move to the interview round. And we want everyone to know that this is a reimbursement grant. That means that you're spending money up front. You will have specific documentation that we will ask for to be reimbursed for the money that is spent toward the project that you present to our committee. Also know that any funds that are granted through the ETD committee and SACAC must be used for the expressed purposes that we outline based on what you present to us in our grant. You will have 30 days from the time that you complete your project to submit information, receipts, documentation for your grant reimbursement. And with that, I will turn things over to Katrina to talk to us a little bit about the grant application timeline and other items. Katrina?
So as Cynthia mentioned, the application is open and will remain open until March the 4th. And so at the end of the day on March the 4th, we will, the committee will have a chance to review all of the applications and evaluate the submissions, and the top scoring applications will receive an invitation to interview. Those interviews will take place during March 24th through March 26th. And it's probably a good idea for you to kind of have some time blocked off. We typically will interview during the first half of the day during those 3 days. And that allows us to interview all the candidates and then definitely have our final decisions made to be able to notify you by that Friday on March the 28th. Just to give you a little bit of insight into what our numbers look like last year, we received 24 applications. And from that 24, 14 institutions received interviews. And we were actually excited to be able to award 13 of those with funds ranging anywhere from about $450 up to about $2,200. And so it's a quick turnaround. Once we get the applications and start the interviews, things move pretty quickly. And so we'll, if you are awarded a grant, you will receive notification by Friday the 28th. And then that allows you from April the 1st through the end of December to go ahead and use your grant funds and make sure that all of your paperwork is submitted by the end of December. Remember, it's really important to remember that you have plans to have the funding ahead of time because we will reimburse you. So you are expected to have the funds to cover whatever cost you are awarded for.
Thank you.
The components of the application are pretty straightforward. Looks like Noah and myself will be going over those different pieces of the application, but there are essentially 3 parts of the application. Part 1 includes the contact information for the person submitting the application or persons and your organization information. Part 2 is where you're going to provide an overview of your project. And then the last part gives us an overview of how you plan to pay for your project. I'll start with part 1. This is a very detailed list of what we are looking for in part 1 of your application. We need to have a contact person, the name of the organization, an actual mailing address, a phone number, an email address. We will communicate primarily through email. And so whoever is going to be responding, we want to make sure we have that specific person's email address. We do need to know your SACAC membership status, your type of organization, whether you are a public school, private school, college, or community-based organization. And I think we even received a couple of independent projects last year from a couple of SACAC members. And if you have received an ETD grant in the past, we would like to know that as well. For your project, this is where the meat of your application will sit. We want to know the name of your project, but beyond that, we want to have a clear understanding of what your project hopes to do. And so we'll talk a little bit more about that on the next slide. So this is an example. I won't read the entire slide, but one of the things we do want to point out here is that it tells us who this project is serving, where it's taking place, a little bit about the background of the students and the organization, but also we want to get a clear understanding of what this project hopes to accomplish. Ms. Cynthia mentioned earlier the importance of us being able to see that your program is offering and providing access to students who might not have this opportunity otherwise. And so you want to make sure in your description that that comes across clear and we're not having to hunt to figure out the purpose and the impact that your program will be able to provide.
All right, I'm going to jump in and talk about the project details. I apologize. I am at home because it is snowing in Northwest Arkansas. So if any children run in the background, they're mine. But in terms of the project details that go with this, the next part 2, project name. Some people are very creative with their project names. Some have a very standard name, just make sure that we understand what exactly the project's going to be in that name, but also providing a detailed description of the project, really focusing on approximately how many students will your project serve. The more the better, obviously. But also, just as importantly, if not more, why is the population you plan to serve most deserving? So we want to give you an example of what we thought was a good project description in the past. So if you look at this right here, again, we're not going to read all of this, but the biggest thing that's effective about this project description is it gives you a lot of good data. You know, the four of us only represent a handful of states in the SACAC region. Always assume that we don't know much about your community or the students that you're serving. So the more data you can provide, the better. So right off the bat, you see all the students are first or second generation immigrants. Approximately 20% of the students are undocumented. All are from families with limited resources. Majority are Pell eligible. Majority of our students, about 70% from 2 rural counties. That's a lot of good information about an area that I'm pretty sure most of us would not have been very familiar with before reading the application. And you can go on, it gives you a lot of good data. It also talks about how they're already serving families with their workshops on a monthly basis. They create bilingual case studies because that really supports the parents. This is really good. This is a really good example of a project description. So again, the more data you can provide about your student population, your community, the better. That's really going to help your application stand out in a positive way. So that's a really great example of project details. Going on to that, on the project details, we also need to know expected project date. I know sometimes it can be really hard to have an exact date, but are you planning to go during a certain month? Do you already have a date in place? That's great too. Give us an idea of what time of year this actual project is going to take place from grant awarding till the end of the calendar year. Also, it's really effective if you have any partners or collaborators, or you already have secured funding from other places to help pay for it, but you need us to come in and help pay for the rest or pay another big chunk of the percentage that's needed to make this possible. Let us know that. That's a good thing. Don't hide behind that you already have partners and collaborators. That shows that you are trying to find multiple funding sources and you're putting a lot of thought and detail and really planning into this project that you plan to do. Uh, but also, just as importantly, provide details on how the project will be assessed. Just like with any grant application, we want to know on the back end, was this an effective program? Especially, you know, we have a lot of people who come back year after year to apply for our grants. You know, knowing that you are assessing these programs, that's only going to help you in the future if you decide to do the program again and you go through Extending the Dream Committee grant application. So to give you an example of what we've seen in the past for assessment, I'll be honest, a lot of them do a pre and post tests. You know, it's you know, as in a lot of cases, especially say you do a college visit, give them a pre-test about what they know about that college, what they know about colleges in general, and then a post test to see what did they learn over the course of your project or your school visit or whatever it may be. That's a pretty standard one, but any way that you're collecting data, collecting as you know, it doesn't always have to be quantitative data, but it could be through interviews, pre-test, post-test. Let us know that you're doing something to assess the effectiveness of this. That is, again, the more description you can give, the better for your application. So those are the project details. I'm now going to turn back over to Cynthia to give another really important part, which is your project budget and what we're looking for on the budget. So Cynthia.
Thank you very much, Noah and Katrina, for your comprehensiveness in those areas. Um, Next to all of what you have heard, the manner in which you share your budget with us is going to be vitally important. Um, we want to make sure that we know the items that you need to in order to successfully make sure that your project is going as planned. We also need to know the projected cost of the items that you think you need. Again, as Noah mentioned earlier, we do want to know if you've already secured funding to help support your project. And please know, again, that is not punitive. We just want to know so that that can help us get a full picture of what you're planning to do and how financially you will be able to do that. And then after all of that, finally, of course, we want to know the amount that you are requesting that we consider to provide to support your particular project as well. So There are some things that we want you to keep in mind. We want you to make sure that your budget is organized. This is just a sample that has worked well in the past. I think if you use that, you will be just fine, and we will be able to garner the information that is important for us to know. But if you have another format or template, that is fine as well. Just be sure that we know that we can be clear on how much you need that you're requesting from us, the items that you need to secure funding for, and whether or not you have secured funding from other sources. Please consider keeping your budget template very organized and make sure that it is clear to us. And then also, we want you to be thinking about which line items in your budget are most important? I can tell you that that is a question that we ask everyone that we interview. We want to know those things that in your mind are must-haves in order for your project to be successful. Those are the items that we may look at first in order to see if we can fund. So we definitely want you to think about that question because I can almost ensure that that is going to come up during your interview if you are selected. We don't have a bottomless pit, so a lot of times, we are looking to seek as much information as possible so that the dollars that are earmarked for this particular grant that are well spent and that we are good stewards. So again, this kind of information that you provide for us will help us to be able to do that. Now, again, I've already talked about will you be receiving funding from additional sources? We want you to provide that information. Again, it's not punitive. Here's an example of a budget. Um, I think we made this one up. This is not necessarily one that has been actually given to us in the past, but this is obviously, we can tell, a project that entails travel, perhaps to a college for a college tour. And this sample budget says that the projected cost for bus rentals for 2 buses would be approximately $2,800. They've secured $150 toward bus rentals. And you can see then the item of how much is being requested for funding from ETD. Snacks and lunch are included. You see the projected cost and how much has been secured and the amount remaining. Surveys that points to that perhaps pre or post assessment that Noah mentioned earlier. $20 is projected for that, but they've secured all the funding for the surveys. So of the items that are needed to successfully implement this particular project, the request made of ETD funding is approximately $3,450. So hopefully this is a sample of how the breakout of your project budget can look to give us all of the information that we might need in order to consider funding your project. And back to Katrina.
So we've reached close to the end of the actual presentation, but we just want you all to know it really is that simple. We want to know who your organization is, what project you want to fund, and then how you plan to supplement or to actually fund the entire project. A couple of the examples that we provided earlier in this next 2 slides, you'll see examples, and both of these projects happen to be college visits. We want to let you know that we welcome college visit proposals, but we also encourage you to think outside of the box, right? We are willing and hope to fund as many programs as we can that show access and impact. And so college visits are always popular, but feel free to be creative.
Thank you very much, Katrina. And with that, we will invite you to place any questions that you may have in the chat. Teammates, do you see any questions in the chat at this time?
No.
Not yet.
Okay, we'll pause just a little bit while you're perhaps thinking of a question. I will go back to highlight, and I'll ask my teammates to do the same thing to kind of mull around some of the information that we've already presented. I'll go back to the information that Katrina shared initially. Please be sure that we have the correct email address and phone number for the project's lead. As Katrina said earlier, our main mode of communication is indeed email. So be sure that you're checking email, checking the email that you provide for us. If there is, a difference or something, please be in touch with us so that we may know that there has been a change in your contact information since the application, because we don't want you to lose out because we can't get in touch with you if we have a follow-up question or may need to contact you. Okay, questions from the chat.
We have one question. Is there anything that will not be funded?
Yes, there are some things that are not funded. We do not necessarily fund stipends for presenters or personnel. All other things we will consider, but those are absolutely not considered, and that's a great question. Any other questions from the chat?
I don't see any other questions. I think
I think there may be one in the Q&A. Is there one in the Q&A?
oh, let me see there.
Yeah.
Will inactive SACAC members be eligible to apply?
Membership status has to be active. Okay, so this grant is offered to all persons who are current SACAC members.
Could financial incentives be provided to students?
I think that's a general question. I don't know if we can say yes or no to that. I think if that's something that we would have to see how that unfolds within your project and your plans for that in the project that you present. But I don't think we can give you a yes or no answer to that today. Team, do you have other thoughts on that?
I agree, Cynthia.
Yeah, we probably have to talk to SACAC, but I'm sure there's always tax implications when you have financial incentives or stipends.
Absolutely.
Like that. So.
Yeah. We like to provide experiences and opportunities. That's the key. And I think if you think along those lines, you'll be in the right ballpark.
Here's
Any
another
other? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Katrina.
question. Would standardized test prep be considered?
It could be. We have to look again at how it is expected to be utilized in the confines of your project that you present.
Looks like that's the last question.
Okay. The teacher and me will pause just for a little bit to see if there are any other last minute. Okay. If there are no other questions, we do thank you so much for your time, for taking out of the time of your busy schedule to be with us today. We hope that we've provided at least a template for you to begin considering your ideas and projects. And we do hope that all of you will decide to apply to SACAC. Before we close out, Noah, do you have any additional comments or
No, thank you. Just look
tidbits?
forward to reading everyone's applications.
And Cynthia, I will say that one more question popped up. Would supplies for a service experience be appropriate?
Again, I think that that's not something that we can say yes or no to. We have to see it in the confines of your project and how that would be utilized and the impact it could have on the students that you plan to serve.
Yeah, and definitely how it relates to college access. That's going to be,
Absolutely.
if it's just a service project for a service project, probably no, but
Thank you. Okay,
That's
and
it.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Katrina.
Oh, that's it.
Okay. And with that, we will just remind you that the deadline is March the 4th. At the end of the day, 11:59 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we do again appreciate your joining us today. Have a great day and thank you so much for your time. We look forward to reading your applications.
thank you, everyone.
See you guys soon.